Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to Spotlight in Business for May 24th, 2022. I'm your host, Tammy Defoe, founder, business coach, and public speaking instructor at GTApreneurs. And I'm so happy to have with me today, Patrick O'Grady, a great man I've known for a couple of years now,
Good afternoon, everyone,
who really does a great job with helping his clients with all kind of needs they have with this amazing company. So let's find more about you, Patrick. I'm looking forward to having you be the guest speaker at our next open networking event. That's going to be May 31st at 7 o'clock. If you haven't got your tickets yet, for those of you watching out there, please click below to register. You want to see Patrick, of course, come for the networking as well. First of all, Patrick, tell us more about yourself.
Hey, thanks, Tammy. That's so great to be here. I grew up on a farm, actually, in southwestern Ontario, and yeah, down near the shores of Lake Erie. And although I lived on the farm, and I guess I could consider myself a farm boy, my father was actually an insurance broker in town. He was also a major politician. He was a mayor of the area. And then after I left my small town and my farm community, I went to school and I eventually ended up in York Region as a teacher, a high school teacher, an administrator with the York Region District School Board. And so my family and I live in Newmarket. My wife and I have two growing daughters. One is 35, the other one is 27. And so that's where I live now. And then is that
No, that's fantastic, Pat. Yeah. And you know what, even though I've known you for 2 years, I just learned a lot of great things about you. So you know, and what did you teach in high school?
What did I teach? Well, I actually, most of my career, I was a guidance counselor.
Okay.
Yeah, I did teach some other subjects, math and phys ed and career studies and so on. But and then the last 10 years of my career, I was the head of the alternative education program in Newmarket, where I got a chance to work with. I had 7 teachers on my team, and I got to work with students who didn't fit into the box, the regular school box. And so I loved working with them. I had some great success stories, great entrepreneurial minds, people who just didn't fit the regular system, but did really well outside of that system. So it was great to work with them.
Good. Yeah, I mean, that's really great to have these sort of programs because everybody's different, right? Everybody has different abilities, interests, and aptitudes and things like that. And instead of having some kids feel like failures because they're not good at a certain thing, then put them to something they are good at, right? Then
exactly, yeah, sure.
That's fantastic. Yeah. So now, and I don't know how you're now with Legal Shield. How long have you been with Legal Shield?
Just over 10 years now. While I was teaching, it was time for me to look beyond teaching. It was my time to move on, and I started looking around for opportunities, or and I thought I would get involved in perhaps in real estate investing, and I have in fact become involved in that. But that's not. We're talking about Legal Shield here, and so while I was at the real estate investment weekend workshop, I met a couple. My wife and I met a couple who introduced us to Legal Shield, and at first I didn't believe it. I thought it was too good to be true. But as I learned more and more about what Legal Shield is, I thought, oh my gosh, not only could I have used it in the past, not because we're bad people, just because we needed legal assistance in some way. And so I thought, well, I found out more about it. And then I found out there was a business opportunity so I could work from home and help myself and my family and help other people as well. So that was the beginning of my career just over 10 years ago.
Nice. And you can also travel and be working, right?
Exactly. So I can do this business from anywhere. And in fact, we just spent nearly 3 months down in the Caribbean this past winter. And really all I needed was a computer and my phone, and I was good to go.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, that's one of the great things about modern technology, right? Is you can go anywhere, but it is great about your business too, where you don't have to be in a brick or mortar location, and you can help people worldwide.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so what different things does Legal Shield cover? Why would people want to get it?
Yeah, Legal Shield is a subscription-based program, a membership-based program. And I know a lot of the services that most of us are getting involved with these days are subscription-based. Could be with our TV, with our phones, with we're all getting involved in these things, and you use them as long as you want them or as long as you need them. And that's how Legal Shield works as well. So, you're not locked in any contract. And there are two memberships that are involved with Legal Shield, two main ideas. One is everything related to legal, and the second one is everything related to identity theft.
Okay. And yeah, for identity theft, because I have that protection actually. Why did they create identity theft?
Yeah, it's interesting. Even when I got involved 10 years ago, and prior to that, identity theft was really kind of unheard of. I mean, nobody really knew. I mean, we kind of heard little bits and pieces, but nobody really, it wasn't a big deal back then. Like 10, 15, 20 years ago, just nobody ever heard of it. And then it became really an avalanche, a waterfall. And of course, there are reasons for that. And the main reason is that we're all online. I mean, these days, everything is online, right? Whether it's ourselves, whether it's the companies we deal with, but everybody's online, including things like our health records, of course, our social insurance numbers and information with the CRA or the IRS if you're from the States. So there's been a lot of situations over many, many years, and we've all heard about data breaches and so on. So they continue. So the thing is that, what do you do when something happens to you, or how do you prevent something happening to you and your identity? What's it all about? How does it work? Why did they do it? I mean, these are all big questions, and they affect all of us, and they can affect us in dramatic ways. Yeah, so Legal Shield came out with originally, Legal Shield just had the legal part, legal plan membership, and then they added on the identity theft membership as well.
So how does that work? Like the bank calls you or something and says, we're noticing something's, crazy, something weird going on, or you just notice like your credit card bill is through the roof or something? What's the usual sign?
That's a great question, Tammy. Most of the time we don't even know we've been victims of identity theft. Like, how do you know? You don't know. I mean, there's been, in the last year, the CRA is, I'm just reading from my notes here, but the CRA has been hacked at least 3 times in the last year. Microsoft has been hacked in March of 2022, just a couple of months ago. A Christian fundraisers group in Ottawa in February of 2022. Crypto.com, cryptocurrency, in this past January. Panasonic in November. Volkswagen, Audi in June. Go Transit in December. I mean, it just goes on and on and on. And you don't even know about it because they may not inform you. They're supposed to, but you may not catch that. So it's a problem. Your information is being stolen. It's being sold. It's being traded usually on a place called the deep dark web. And I caution you not to go to the deep dark web because you may have the RCMP or the CIA knocking at your door. So don't go there. Don't look for it.
Yeah.
Right. But all of these hacks, and we all think that we can. I mean, there are some things that we can do, and I can go over those as well, to protect ourselves, to make it harder for the identity thieves. But ultimately, unfortunately, it's not possible to prevent it. If you think about the CRA and all of the firewalls they have in place to keep this from happening, and yet the hackers can still get in. And it happens to every company. And sometimes it's an insider thing too, Sometimes it's someone at the company who's being paid to help the criminal get that information, get your information. So it's happening worldwide. It's happening every day. And there's not a whole lot you can do to prevent it. But as I say, there are some things we can talk about.
Yeah. So, I mean, let's say, for example, the CRA is hacked, right? Even if they give you a notification, like, what does that mean? Like, maybe it impacts you, maybe it doesn't impact you, right? Like, would people use it to, like, all of a sudden, like, take money out of your bank account, or, what would be the issue that a person would experience if one of these sites was hacked into?
Yeah. So let's go over a couple of examples. There's someone, for example, who lives in Newmarket, and they received a notice from their bank stating that if they didn't pay the mortgage on their property in Mississauga, that they would have to forego the mortgage here in Newmarket on their current house, on their house that they live in.
Wow.
Well, they didn't own a property in Mississauga, but the criminals had grabbed their information and had opened up a mortgage in their name and bought a property in Mississauga. So what they do is they earn income from that. Don't ask me how, but they earn income from doing that. And then you're on the hook for whatever happened. There was a couple who were, they were stopped randomly by a police officer. And the police officer said, sir, ma'am, out of the car. And they said, like, what did we do? And they said, well, we just ran your license plate and you failed to show up to court. You failed to pay your fines. And this is in Toronto, by the way. What eventually they found out was that there was a criminal in Toronto who had taken a picture of their license plate and duplicated the license plate. And then do you think that they care where they park or how fast they're driving? They don't care. And the other thing that they do is they change the address, because now they have, once a criminal has one part of your information, your identity, they can get everything else. And so what they ended up doing was in many of these fraud schemes and identity theft situations, they change your address. So the mail that you get, say, from the court system, it doesn't go to your address, it goes to the fake address because they changed it with the post office. So this couple ended up having to go to court, and it was a real problem, and it took them a long, long time to get this straightened out. It was a real mess. I'm just trying to think of some of the other situations. Myself and my wife, I was down in Miami, and I was working on my emails. It's about 9 o'clock at night, and all of a sudden my emails started going like in and out, disappearing and coming back, and all of a sudden they all disappeared. Everything is gone. I couldn't get into my emails. And right away I phoned up Legal Shield or identity theft specialists.
Yeah.
And I said, what do I do? What do I do? Mm-hmm. And again, we can talk about solutions or what we can do about things like this, but that's how I found out. And then shortly after that, within 2 hours, we started receiving notices from our friends. Hey, are you in trouble? Because you sent me an email that says send money. And we've all, I think most of us have received those kinds of notices from people that we know, or we think we know anyway. There was a lady here in Newmarket. Well, I'll tell you about this other gentleman. I got lots of stories, trust me.
Well, look, we have to keep it short. Sorry, Patrick.
Okay.
We still have to Legal Shield, but let's say this happens to somebody, right? Like the bank calls them and you owe us money or whatever. Then how is the identity theft protection going to help the person? What are they going to do for the person?
Well, okay. So the first thing the ID Shield membership does is it monitors everything that belongs to you and your spouse, okay, worldwide. So anything, what property that you own, your social insurance number, your driver's license number, your phone number, your emails, your credit cards, of course, your bank accounts, all of these things are monitored worldwide every single day, 24/7. When someone tampers with your identity, they will notify you by email right away. And then you can call up and speak to a real live person right away. And they will either advise you, if it's minor enough, they'll advise you what to do. But if it's a serious situation, they'll do the heavy lifting. They'll take over from you and they will go to bat for you and solve it for you. So you don't have to worry about it. So it's kind of complete, peace of mind protection. Because if it happens, okay, it's unusual and you feel violated and so on, but at least you have the experts there to solve it for you. So they probably would advise you to go to the bank, for example. This one gentleman who went to the bank, you found out he was a victim of identity theft. Everything was messed up, $250,000, $300,000 against his name throughout all across North America. And they shut him down. They shut down his bank account. You can't, once they shut you down, you can't use your credit card. You can't use your debit card. And the only way you're going to be able to, how do you pay your bills? How do you, if you have employees, how do you pay your employees? Right? It's impossible. So you have to go to the bank, prove who you are, and then take out cash and then try and do it with cash until everything is resolved. And sometimes, with that gentleman who went to the bank and found out, it took the experts 2.5 years to solve that situation. 2.5 years. I mean, how long would it take you and I? And would we even know where to start? Someone hacks your identity down in California, Florida, British Columbia. How do you solve that? Where do you start? Well, that's where Legal Shield comes in. They do all that for you.
Okay, so basically they'll call the police, they'll call the bank, they'll do all that
Well,
stuff.
yeah, you'll have to do some of that. I mean, they'll advise you to call the police. I mean, you know what the police will do though? The police will take your report. That's what the police will do. They won't do anything else. Most of the time, because they can't find the criminal. I mean, there's a good reason why the criminals get involved in this activity is because you can't catch them. And if you did catch them, you couldn't prove that they were at that. Which computer did they use? You have to prove the computer. You have to prove they were the ones sitting at the computer. It's impossible. It's just impossible.
Right.
So,
okay,
so
but
that's,
say for example, it says, well, you were arrested or something and you do this. So
right.
like, because it doesn't matter what you say to police, they're going to say, well, sorry, this is your name, this is your thing. So how is identity theft people going to help you in that case?
Okay. Right. So this is where the other membership comes in too, the legal plan membership, because most of the time identity theft, the result of identity theft is generally a criminal situation. Mm-hmm. So, so this is where you call up your provider law firm as part of the Legal Shield legal membership. Mm-hmm. And that's available to you 24/7 if you're stopped by police or, involved in a car accident. So you can call the police, you can report, talk to your lawyer, get some legal advice, talk to your identity theft experts, get some advice from them as to what you should do first, second, and third. There was a gentleman who was a chiropractor heading down he was working with the NFL football teams on the East Coast. And he was on his way on a Friday night. He got pulled over by law enforcement, highway patrol. Turns out he was a victim of identity theft, but they didn't know that. They threw him in jail, and he would have had to stay in jail until the following Tuesday or Wednesday because the judge wasn't going to show up until that time. So it's Friday to Tuesday or Wednesday. He would have missed everything. Fortunately, he had this membership, called both his legal, his lawyers and his identity theft specialists. And he was out that evening on his way down to the football team and his workshop he was giving, So that's, because what else do you do? The policeman says, well, is this your name? Yeah. Is this your address? Yeah. Is this your driver's license? Yeah. Well, then get in the squad car. You're going downtown. Yeah. What's your next move?
Yeah. No, that's great to have. I mean, I think it's something that, of course, we never want the situation to happen to us, but unfortunately it has happened to other people. So, why wait for it to happen to you, right? Instead of being protected. But now with entrepreneurs specifically, what is it something else that the plan can do for them?
Yeah, well, let's talk about, both of those plans, both the identity theft and, first of all, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, if you're a victim of identity theft, what does that mean for your business? Think about that for a second. I mean, now that they have your information, do they have access to your business? Do they have access to your accounts, to your computer, to your passwords? Your social insurance number and therefore CRA information about you? I mean, more than likely they do. And so again, you have this issue with your business and identity theft, but you also have the legal part. But let's talk about the positive part of having the legal plan. Yeah. So as an entrepreneur, first of all, as a new entrepreneur, most people are unsure of their, legal, the structure that they should have in place for the business. Should it be a sole proprietorship? Should it be a corporation? And so on. So there's lots of questions surrounding that. You can ask your provider law firm. And, but there's other things like CRA issues and so on that you might have questions about. Taxation questions, of course, speak to a tax lawyer, maybe you have like a contract that you're either setting up yourself or someone else wants you to sign. And, the question I ask people, Tammy, is if you were to win the lottery, I think there's a Lotto Max lottery now, it's $70 million I saw on TV. $70 million, if you won that and unlimited funds, the question I ask people is, well, would you hire a lawyer from that point on forward? Would you have a legal team? I mean, and why would you have a legal team? Why would you have a lawyer? Well, wouldn't it be to keep you out of trouble? See, most people think that having a lawyer is there to get you out of trouble. But your legal team is there to help prevent you from getting into trouble. So why not have them review your contracts and documents before you sign them to make sure that you're protected and perhaps your clients are protected also. I had a member who signed a lease for her company. It was a big warehouse, and shortly after that, within a year, the landlord came back and said, "Well, you owe me $50,000." And she had no idea. Why? Because she hadn't read the contract thoroughly, and she hadn't used a lawyer to review that with her. So she was stuck, Then you sign the contract, of course, you're stuck for that contract, and it's pretty difficult to get out of it. So that's why I suggest that business owners and we as individuals as well, family members, have those contracts reviewed. Again, it could be employment issues, either as the business owner or as the employee. You could have, your employment contracts reviewed, make sure they're accurate and so on. They're up to date. And that's the other thing is a lot of times we've done something, 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years ago, but laws may have changed. So make sure that you're having your documents reviewed on a regular basis to make sure they are up to date. I mean, it only takes, it takes a few days perhaps to have a lawyer review that. And of course, you can have your own lawyer do that. I mean, it doesn't have to be a legal lawyer, but it's smart business, I think. I think you'd agree with me. Smart business to have these documents reviewed and have someone who really knows what they're talking about to review them. I think my statement to folks is that if you don't know your legal rights, then you don't have any. So the question is, how do you find out what your legal rights are in any given situation? And that is use an expert, just like you're the expert for networking and so on and GTApreneurs. Why not hire? You have an accountant to look after your money. Why and your bookkeeping and so on. Well, why not have a lawyer in your back pocket? And I think it's smart. It's just wise business for everybody.
Yeah, well, I know one of the first thing I did actually with the Legal Shield that I got from you, actually, Patrick, was I called them up because I was going to incorporate, and I said, should I incorporate provincially or federally, right? And I tried reading through the government website, CRA and everything else, right? And I was like, okay, it sort of seems like I should do provincial, but they're like, no, national. So yeah, just that simple piece of advice was important. It would have been a huge step if I did Ontario and then all of a sudden I want to do federal, and it's a whole circus to jump through, right? But this was easier. And then when I was going to hire an employee for the first time, I had them review the employment contract, and they could say, yep, this is good, this one, no change this or whatever. So, it is good that you can just easily, get something, contracts reviewed, like non-disclosure agreements reviewed, or they can, again, whether you're signing it, someone else made it or you're making it, and that sort of thing. I think it is important to, as a business owner. Yeah. And but he said, even as an individual, right? Like, I mean, there's all kind of contracts people sign all the time.
Oh, absolutely. Like renting a property, renting an apartment or a condo, buying property as an individual. Sure, there's so many different things. I remember my daughter leasing agreement. She had her lawyer review that. Lawyer said there are 3 things that the landlord should take out of it. They're not illegal, but they're not in your best interests. So she went back to the landlord, advised him what her lawyer had said, and the landlord took those 3 clauses out of there. And the key with this, Tammy, is that the other girls in the house, this is while she was going to university, the other girls in the house all signed it like it was. And the 3 clauses had to do with someone doing damage to the property, and you would be responsible, everybody's responsible for paying for that, to fix the damages.
Even though they didn't do it.
Exactly. Yeah. So you would never know that unless you spoke to a lawyer about that, right? And had them review that. Yeah. There's another thing that back to business owners for a second now. Sometimes there are situations where you'd like to have a lawyer write a letter to a third party. It could be, you've done some work. In fact, one of our members had, $1,500 of work done for a client, and the client wasn't paying. And, that's a difficult situation. You want to be friendly because you're hoping that the client's going to pay you the money. Well, he tried. And over time, he just said, okay, it's not working, even though I've tried. So he called his lawyer, a legal lawyer, and the lawyer wrote a letter on his behalf to that third party. And within 2 weeks, that individual had paid the $1,500 back to the business owner, and sometimes we call them motivational letters. They may not always work, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
if they work, 9 times out of 10, would it be worth it? So
exactly. Okay,
Yeah.
well, look at Patrick. It's been great to have you here. That's all the time we have for today. But I know you're going to do a great job of giving us a lot of other detail about how people can empower themselves and their families and their businesses, all with using the different Legal Shield services they have. And I said, I have a Legal Shield client. I do recommend it for other people. And Patrick's going to be happy to answer any questions you may have. You can reach out to him before the event, during the event, after the event. But no matter what, look into it, because it's better to have it and not need it than need it and not have it, right? I think you probably used that line before, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Great. Okay, look at you. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Thanks, Tammy.